All right, guys. Hi, everyone. I'm Cody. I'm a marketing specialist here at QNAP. I'm here with our product manager, Deval.
Good morning, everybody.
And we want to thank you for joining us for the webinar today. And we're going to be going over Plex and how QNAP serves as a Plex server and how to choose the right QNAP for your use case. And so taking a look here at the agenda, we're going to start out by talking about Plex on the QNAP NAS. So why you would use QNAP NAS for Plex and what Plex is. We're going to go over software transcoding, hardware transcoding, and we're also going to have a live demo with Deval where he'll give us a hands-on look with Plex on the QNAP. And we're also going to talk about some specific NAS models and how to pick the right NAS for you for what your use case may be. And then we'll have a Q&A time to just go over any questions that you guys might have. So any questions you have throughout the presentation, you can just ask us during that Q&A time, and we'll be happy to get to those. All right, so what is Plex? As many of you probably know, it's a private multimedia platform, easily browsable multimedia platform where you can kind of create your own library that's easy to view and easy to just stream your content to various devices. It's compatible with pretty much any device that you're going to want to play it on, from smart TVs, Apple TV, Chromecast, etc. And it also supports transcoding, so if your files are in one format or something, you can play it on various devices. And of course, we'll talk about that more going forward as well. Now, why is QNAP a good option for Plex? Well, for starters, QNAP supports up to dozens of terabytes, or really even hundreds of terabytes potentially of storage. So you'll have plenty of storage for all of your media content. You can easily house your whole library. Additionally, QNAP incorporates RAID redundancy to protect your media against drive failure. And QNAP offers many models with powerful CPUs, as well as integrated graphics on Intel models to support transcoding, both software transcoding and for Intel models hardware transcoding. So why do we need transcoding? Transcoding is basically made up of two parts, the decoding and encoding. And we do this when using Plex to make the playing of our media more flexible. So files such as MKV files may not be playable on certain devices. You may have your media content files formatted in ways that a particular device may not be able to play back. Additionally, you may want to transcode to different resolutions. When you're streaming content on the go, you may not have the available bandwidth to support higher resolution content, and higher resolution may not even be necessary when you're viewing it on a small screen on a mobile phone or tablet or something. You may also want to conserve data usage if you're away by transcoding to lower resolution. And so with transcoding, you have both software transcoding and hardware transcoding. Software transcoding is performed on the NAS's CPU, just the general overall processor for the NAS. And then with hardware transcoding, it will have a dedicated GPU or like an Intel Quick Sync used to accelerate the process. So it's dedicated it has like a GPU dedicated just for the transcoding. And so this will give it much better performance typically if you're trying to transcode higher resolution content such as 4K content or something of that nature. You're going to probably want something that can provide hardware transcoding. And using hardware transcoding with Plex does require a Plex pass. So you can purchase that or get that on a subscription basis as well. So with that, Deval is going to show us a little demo of Plex so you can see what this looks like, how it sets up and everything like that.
All right, thank you very much, Cody. Thank you for joining our webinar today. Today we'll be talking about, again, Plex and how you can how QNAP can help you take advantage of using it as a Plex server. Now, before we continue, give me 1 minute. Okay. Sorry, keep me waiting. All right, so yeah, once you to install Plex, basically you have to first log into your NAS. Once you're logged into your NAS, you go to App Center and then look for Plex application. Now, on a supported NAS, when you look for Plex application, you will see the application available. You can click on install, and it will install the application for you. For NAS that does have the NAS for NAS that does have SSD storage volume as well as HDD storage volume, then we recommend to have to install the Plex server in your SSD volume. So the processing of metadata is faster, and you can still you can still store your movies and your videos and your personal videos and TV shows and music inside your HDD volume, but we recommend um, installing the Plex onto the SSD volume. So the metadata processing that happens within the Plex is much faster than with an SSD volume. So also for NASs that have M.2 storage as well, we recommend to have that M.2 as a storage volume, so you can install your fast application instead of caching. If you're using it only for Plex, then we recommend using this as a storage volume rather than caching, because caching may not help you much in your if you're using it only for Plex or only to serve as a Plex media server. If you're using it for other purposes like video editing or virtualization or any other purposes, then caching, you can take advantage of caching. But if you're just purely using it for like streaming videos, like Plex, Video Station, or DLNA servers, we recommend using that M.2 for storage. So you can install two M.2s, create a RAID 1 volume, and then install your applications like Plex, Video Station inside your SSD volume or M.2 volume. So keep that in mind. You can always stop, and you can also migrate to. So if you have a Plex that is already installed and you want to move that particular installation to another volume, you can click on migrate and then select the second volume or the third volume, whatever volume you have, and click on migrate, and it'll migrate your data from that volume to the other volume. Okay, so that's one thing to note. The other configuration that you would need is a storage on site or within your NAS to store your data, right? So you can click on control panel and shared folders, and you can click in. Now there is some default folders that QNAP does create, such as multimedia download container stations. So if you have those applications, if you do have multimedia application, if you're using it for multimedia, so you will have like you have apps like Multimedia Console installed, then you will have a folder by default that's created called multimedia. We recommend installing or copying your multimedia like movies, TV shows, personal videos inside the multimedia folder, or you can create your own folder or name it as Plex folder. Select the current volume, if you have SSD, HDD, because you don't want your because HDD are bigger hard drive sizes that can hold a lot of information. You want to have your Plex data, such as your personal videos, movies, inside your HDD. So you can select that particular volume and then click on create, and that will create that volume. You don't need to change any permissions or anything like that. As long as you're using the admin account, you're fine with that. So right here I have multimedia, so I've copied all my multimedia folder inside the, so if you go to file station, I have a folder called Plex. I've clicked on that, and then I have my movies, music, TV shows stored within the multimedia folder. So okay, and so that is it. So next, for once you have copied, so I've copied some files inside my multimedia, and I'll be using it for Plex. Once you copy all the information inside the application, you install Plex, and then open the Plex application. It will go through the initial configuration, and then it will ask you to add folders. I'm going to add a folder. I'm going to show you how to add a folder inside the Plex. So to add a folder, you select your server, click on the plus or add library. So add library is where the Plex will look inside your QNAP to find like TV shows, movies, and other data, and it will create a library for you, like a Netflix style library. So you can click on, it will show you like music, arts, or movie posters, and then like other critical information like who's the director, who's the casting member, and other stuff like that as well. So you have to select the library. So let's say if you want to select that library for your TV shows, you can click on TV shows. You can select. You can also name it as in more detail if you like to. So like anime TV shows or comedy TV shows if you wanted to, or just name it as TV shows. Click on Add Folders. Click on Browse Media Folders. Now this is where it's going to show you all hidden folders within your NAS as well, like all your configuration folders, all your other folders as well. Basically, you're looking for folders for your data, right? Because library is where your data would be. So the folders that will be on QNAP, the folders that usually are named for data would be cache dev1 or anything regarding cache dev underscore data, or on some older system, it could also be MD1 underscore data or MD0 underscore data. So anything underscore data will be your data folder. So again, cache dev1 underscore data or MD0 underscore data or MD1 underscore data. Those are the folders that we'll be using for your data. That's why data will be served as. So let's say you select cache dev1. That's probably my folder. So if you that's my data folder. So if you see here, you can see the multimedia folder. You can click on that. You can click on Plex, select TV shows, and click on Add. Under Advanced, you can do so include subtitles if you have subtitle folder files inside your inside your library, or you can also click on video preview thumbnails, other related contents as well. That's more into Plex as well. Also that's more settings available from Plex, but those you can do as well. And then once you have done all that, click on Add Library, and it will add that library. I don't have any particular files inside that particular library, so it's not going to find anything. But it's going to start searching for the library, start searching for all the data within that folder, and it'll create a library for you. So that's how easy it is to add libraries inside your Plex. So going back here, so I have some data that's saved within the movies folder that we can be using for today's webinar for more testing as well. Other settings I'm going to show you would be under settings. You can also do remote access. So this is where you're going to be able to set up your remote access. So the Plex is not just for local account as well. You can also, when you're traveling, you can use your phones to watch movies when you're on the go as well. So this is where you can set up remote access. The Plex by default uses 32400. So you would need to open that port on the Plex router. Sorry, not Plex router. I mean your home router or your office router, wherever the router is. You have to open that particular port. You have to actually forward it to the QNAP's IP address. So whatever the IP address of my QNAP would be, that you have to open that particular port for that. So let me see if I can show you that as well. So I'm using a QHORA router as my main router. So once you log into the router, you go to your NAT and firewall settings, and then click on NAT rules and click on pull forwarding. So if you see here, I have forwarded my port 32400 to the local IP address. So my local IP address, my QNAP would be 192.168.200.200. You open that particular port 32400, 32400 for LAN, and then you can name the description as anything. So that will open that particular port, so you can access your Plex server remotely as well. Now, if you have multiple Plex servers that you're using, then you cannot use different WAN ports. So you have to name because you cannot have multiple same LAN ports WAN ports to be used over the internet. So if you're using a server with 32400, you cannot use a second server with 32400 that is internet facing. So you have to change your WAN port. So on QHORA router, you can actually do that as well. So you can actually change your WAN port to be something else, 32401. You can change your the second Plex IP address, which is, let's say, 210. And then you can keep your LAN port as 32400. So you don't have to change anything on the Plex. You can keep your Plex to see to keep it as 32400, but your WAN port would be 32401. And then once you click on apply, you can the second server will be 32401. You can, if you have the capabilities on your router, or you can change it here as well. You can manually specify a public port, and you can change it to be 32401, and internally it'll be 32400. So you can do that as well within the Plex. You can disable remote access if you like to, so it's not available on the internet. It's only for local access users as well. So that's your settings. You can also set your upload speed limit. So if you don't want the Plex to be using up all your internet bandwidth, you can just change it to something. You can change it to a lower megabits per second. So I think my internet speeds are 100 megabits per second upload and download. Then I can change the upload speed to just say use 50 megabits per second. So I can change the number here as 50. So the Plex, when users are streaming remotely, they'll only get 50 megabits per second bandwidth. It won't exceed that. So if my internet upload speed, again, so here you have to remember the download speed doesn't matter when you're using Plex, because Plex is going to be streaming outwards. So when you're traveling, you're actually streaming from your server. So even if you have, let's say if you have a download speed, so some cable providers I know, they can give you 1 gig download speeds, but the upload speed will only be something like 20 megabits per second. That may not be enough, especially if you're going to be using it for streaming HD contents or 4K contents. That upload speed may not be enough. So so you have to remember that if you plan to use Plex to stream to multiple users, you have to have a better upload speeds. Download speed doesn't really matter because Plex is not going to be downloading much. It's going to be always uploading to data to remote users. So especially if you're using Plex for remote access, you have to make sure that you have a good upload speed. Now, if you do have, let's say, as I mentioned, if you have 100 megabits upload speed and you have a lot of users that's streaming through your Plex, then if you have multiple users, they may use up your internet upload speed, your 100 megabits quickly, and then you may not have enough speed for your regular use for your other use as well. So you can state your maximum upload speed here. Let's say use only 50 megabits per second from upload speed. So if you have 100 megabits per second internet connection for upload, so Plex will only use the 50 megabits per second, and the rest of the 50 megabits per second will be available for other applications. So if you're using it for file server, if you're using it for any other application, you can set it to so the Plex will only use half of that. It will keep the rest of them for your other applications. If you don't set it to any upload speed, it'll just use whatever maximum available it is, and that will be it. So that's one settings you can also do. The other option is you can limit your stream bit rate to certain megabits per second. So when remote users are, especially if you have 4K contents in your Plex server, then you would need to have, you can limit your maximum stream bitrate to something like 720p, 4 megabits per second, 3 megabits per second at 720p. So when they're streaming 4K content, the QNAP will then automatically convert that video while on the go. So they're not actually streaming 4K content. They're actually limited to 3 megabits per second, 720p. So they're not using up all your bandwidth. It's actually a lower bandwidth as well. So that's another great way to control your bandwidth usage. So again, this is a very important step you can use, especially if you have not a lot of bandwidth and you have a lot of Plex users that uses your Plex to stream videos. This is a good way to control your bandwidth as well. So that's your remote access settings that you can do. Under library, this is where you can set up your scan rates. So when you put any new contents, the Plex doesn't actually. So let's say you recorded a new video on your phone, or you got a new movie and you copied that into your NAS folder inside a multimedia. Your QNAP won't, so the Plex won't show you that video immediately unless you go back here and then click on scan library files. So when you upload new contents, this is another great way, or another example how you can upload new contents. When you upload new contents, you can come here and click on scan. It will scan that particular folder and it will give you that new content. Or you can set up under library, you can set up to scan library automatically. So what happens is that when the QNAP or Plex detects that a new folder or new file was added inside your library folder, the Plex will start scanning that particular folder, and then it will start uploading new content. You can also set up as periodical as well. So you can set up a scan every hour, every 2 hours, every 6 hours, or daily. So it will scan all your photos that's hosted for Plex during certain times, and it will allow you to upload and then it will present all your new files and send your Plex. So that's another great way to do that as well. Um, and Another option would be transcoder. So this is a great example. So now before I continue, there are certain features that I'll be talking about today that requires a Plex pass. So again, it's not from QNAP. Again, this is a Plex application. It's a third-party application. If you're not aware about it, this is not from QNAP. It's a third-party application. It's available from Plex. So certain features, especially transcoding features, will require a Plex pass. So as Cody was mentioning before, you have two options, right? You have hardware transcoding, you have software transcoding. So software transcoding will use your CPU itself, or the processing power or horsepower from your CPU to transcode when you're on the go. What I mean by transcoding is there are two ways of transcoding, right? You have file format transcoding and you have resolution transcoding. File format transcoding is let's say if you have folders that have MKB containers, right? Not all devices are able to or capable of playing that MKB files, especially if you have an older Apple devices, they're not able to play um, MKV files. So when that particular Apple device is trying to connect to your Plex, it will look at your data, and when you try to when it's trying to playing when it starts playing back any particular video file, the Plex will need to convert that into something recognizable by those Apple devices like MP4. So it will start transcoding live into that MP4 format, and for that transcoding, and because it's doing it live, it requires a good amount of processing power to do that as well. But that's one type of transcoding, right? File format transcoding. The other type of transcoding is resolution transcoding. So what happens is that, let's say you're traveling, right? You're remotely accessing a Plex server, and you want to play back, especially a 4K or HD content, but you don't have a good bandwidth or download available at that location. Let's say, best example, you're trying to stream a TV show sitting at a Starbucks coffee shop. If you've been to a Starbucks coffee shop, they don't have a good Wi-Fi or internet connection available, and you don't have a good 4G or 5G connection as well. So at that particular time, what you can actually do is you can actually ask your Plex to convert that video into a lower quality video, something like 720p or even lower, like 480p or 320p or something lower resolution. And the Plex what it does is that it'll take that particular 4K or 1080p video, it will start live transcoding. So you're trying to stream that video while the QNAP is actually transcoding in the background into a lower resolution. Now, if you've done any kind of conversion using any software like Handbrake software or any other conversion software, you know that it takes a lot of time and a lot of horsepower to transcode that. So again, what Plex does is that it'll do live transcoding while you're on the go. So again, you have two types of transcoding. You have the software transcoding and you have hardware transcoding. Now, if you have a Plex pass, then you do have the capability of doing hardware transcoding. Now, when the software transcoding, as I was mentioning before, it uses CPU to transcode your video. So if you have a better CPU with a lot of cores and a lot of threads, then it should be able to do transcoding. But if you have a CPU like an Intel CPU or a GPU, you can actually use those features or those GPU or an Intel CPU. Most of them have Intel QuickSync what it does is that QuickSync allows you, there's a special chip inside the CPU that does only transcoding video. It's only handling the video files. So when you use that particular chip, the transcoding, it will use the hardware part of that transcoding, and it will offload all the processing power for just use just for transcoding. It will use that, and it will put that into that chip. So it does much. The advantage is much more faster transcoding, and also not a lot of CPU usage as well. I'm going to demonstrate that to you right now, or in a few minutes, what it does. But right now, just give you an example. The current CPU I'm using is an Intel Pentium Gold GPU. It's a TVS 472 XT, so that has an Intel CPU available. That it does, that it will use that that will be using it for today's demonstration. So this does have Intel QuickSync technology, and it will use that. There's no GPU inside this particular unit. So if you look at the hardware, and if you look at the expansion hardware resources, there's no GPU installed. So it's going to be using the Intel QuickSync technology available in the Intel CPU to do the hardware transcoding for today's demonstration. So the first, I'm going to disable the hardware transcoding, right? We're going to save changes here. I'm going to disable the transcoding, and I'm going to set this. I'm going to also talk about the simultaneous video transcoding, but I'm going to set it unlimited right now. I'm going to save changes. Now let's open up my Plex software. Going back here, let me go back on the QNAP and then show you the resource monitor. This is a good way to see what your QNAP is doing. Now, yeah, the CPU usage and memory usage. So we'll go back to overview so you can get more information how everything is going. So let's play back a 4K file. I have a test 4K file. Let's start from beginning. Oh, actually, I'm going to use the Plex software. I'm going to explain why, but now if you look at the CPU usage, when using a file that is not, let me see if it's transcoding or not first. It's actually playing back the original format. Let me play back. It's a 4K file, and if you look at it, it's a 37.7 megabits file, and it's a 4K file. I'm gonna lower the resolution. Now you're gonna see if you're using it, for this webinar, it's not the video playback will be very choppy because again, it's not you're just looking at as a remote access service. So the video will be choppy. That's expected. Now I'm playing the 4K video into a smaller. I'm converting that 4K into a 720p video, right? You can see the CPU usage is it's actually fairly down right now. Give me 1 second. Yeah, okay. So here we go. So if you look at the CPU usage, if you're using the CPU to transcode, you're gonna see it's gonna take up a lot of bandwidth or a lot of CPU usage to transcode that particular file. It's gonna be able to play back that particular file, but the transcoding is gonna take a lot of processing power from the QNAP to transcode that particular video. It's almost taking up all of my CPU usage to transcode that one particular file into a 4K or even a 720p HD quality, because it is doing a live transcoding of that particular file. So you can see the CPU usage is almost pegging up my CPU. Now, if I play back another computer, if I play back another file, or if another user is trying to log in and trying to transcode that, it's not going to be able to handle. So it's only going to be able to handle one transcoding at a time. So it's going to be using up a lot of, because again, the CPU usage is almost maximum. And what will happen is that eventually the QNAP the Plex will start buffering that particular video, because it's the CPU, it's taking a while to convert that video into a 720p video. as well. So that's a lot of processing power. You're going to see a lot of buffering. It's going to pause a lot. All these issues will happen a lot, right? Because it's trying to transcode that particular video, and the CPU processing power, it doesn't have enough processing power to transcode that particular video into whatever the quality you're trying to request it as. So that's software transcoding. So because the CPU, you would need a powerful CPU to transcode this particular video into something like into something that's playable. So if your QNAP doesn't have hardware transcoding, like Cody was mentioning, we do have if you do have entry-level NAS that doesn't have hardware transcoding, you can still play back Plex files. The only thing it won't do is convert or do transcoding. So you can go back and play original file, and if you look at when you play back original file, the CPU usage should drop. So that's called direct play. So see, look at the CPU usage has dropped significantly. So because it's doing direct play, it's streaming the video it's streaming the file how the file was supposed to be at. So it's not going to do any transcoding. It's not converting the video. It's not converting any format, or it's not converting anything. It's just playing back how the file is supposed to be. So so for those entry-level files that do not have transcoding capabilities, you can actually still use them as a Plex server. You cannot do any kind of transcoding. You have to just use it or play the file as the original format file, and it will still be able to play back those files. So that's another great feature that you can use. With with processors that do have transcoding available or hardware transcoding available, you can come on the transcoding tab, check these two boxes, and click on Save Changes. So at this point, the QNAP will start transcoding this particular video, or it's going to use hardware inside your CPU to start transcoding that video. Now we're going to see the difference, how it's going to be. So let's go back and replay this video. Now, I have multiple clients I've already set up on my desk to do a demo for this. So I'm gonna do multiple. I have a phone, I have a tablet, I have a laptop, and I have this computer that I'm using for testing this, right? Looks like Plex has. All right, open up Plex again. All right, so let's play back that particular file again, start from beginning, and let's convert that video into the quality we were doing to. Now, if you look at the CPU usage, it is increasing because again, it's still a 4K file. But again, if you look at the CPU usage, it's not that much. Now I'm gonna open up another client on my laptop. I'm gonna open that. I'm gonna convert that video again on another laptop. And see the CPU usage is now increased to 41%, or it's hovering that at 30 to 40% now. And I have two files that are being played. They're all converting the video. I'm gonna open up a third client on my tablet, and I'm gonna start playing that same exact file, and again it'll convert that file on a third client, and still the CPU usage has hovered now it's up to 50%. But again, it's actually 4 different clients that is actually streaming, 3 different clients actually streaming the same exact 4K content on 3 different clients. I'm gonna open up a 4th client on my phone, and you can see the difference as well. If you look at my Plex, it's actually 4. It should be 4 different clients that's playing back. Yeah, so 4 different clients that's playing back the same exact 4K content, and it's all converting this particular video into different formats. So, and look at the CPU usage, it's actually around 50 to 40%. Now it will drop because these files, the files that I'm using it for testing, are not bigger files. So what happens is that because the CPU usage, the reason the CPU usage is dropping is because it's done converting that particular video. So it's the CPU hardware transcoding is so efficient and so fast that it's converting the video before the actual client is finished playing back that video. It's buffering. It's called buffering, right? So buffering, it's already converted that video. So the CPU usage will drop down if the conversion activity is no longer going there. So it's already converting the video. It's already done converting the video. That's the reason CPU usage has dropped. There's a process that should be running to see the Plex server, media server processing. It's running and it's actually converting the video. So that's the reason it's recommended to have a NAS that have a good hardware transcoding available. And that's the reason, that's the main reason to have a hardware transcoding available. So you can see the difference between software transcoding. It's actually the one particular stream is actually using almost around 100%. And that's same exact file when playing back on at least 4 different clients using hardware transcoding, it's only using about 50 to 60% of CPU. So that's another great feature that we recommend. So hardware transcoding is available again on Intel processors with Intel QuickSync technology, or on a NAS that has GPU capabilities. You can actually use that GPU from NVIDIA, or and then use that to transcode the video. And we do recommend using those as well. So again, if you have multiple clients that you're going to be using for multimedia streaming, then we recommend using hardware transcoding. So this test was done by 4 different clients. So you can do that as well. Now, if you do have CPU that has transcoding capabilities available, there's another feature on this particular page called maximum simultaneous video transcode. What this feature allows you to do is it will limit how many users can transcode at a time. So you can set the limit up to at least maybe 1, and then save changes. So when I'm trying to play back a file on my computer, there's one file that's being playing back, right? This one file playing back on my laptop. Now, if I open up another client and I request transcoding, it's not going to be able to do transcoding. So if I try to transcode this particular video, it's going to give me not enough CPU available for conversion. This is because you're limiting the transcoding capabilities of your CPU to just to have one transcoding available. So just one particular transcode available, and then it will only allow to have 1 client or 2 clients. So I'm going to set up as 2 clients. I'm going to try to retry the video, and it's going to play back that particular video. So again, a great feature that you can use to use transcoding on the QNAP. And also the great feature to limit how many transcodings you can do to set up on the QNAP as well. So we recommend using that as well if you don't have, or if you want to limit how many people can transcode. Another feature that was recently added was HDR tone mapping, which when you do, if you have an HDR video file and you transcode that particular video file, you're gonna see a lot of washed out images. Unfortunately, I don't have royalty free video file to demo that for you. But what happens is that when you transcode an HDR content using Plex transcoder, you will see a lot of washed out images. With this particular HDR new feature, what happens is that it will try to retain the HDR content when you're doing transcoding. So you can use this particular feature as well to allow to have to keep your HDR content and keep the quality of that HDR content. The transcoder quality, again, you can set up as automatic, so it looks at the CPU, that the current CPU usage, it will and how many people are trying to transcode, and will decide it for you. Or you can set it up to either prefer high speed transcoding. So so Plex will not look at the quality that much, but it will allow you to have multiple transcoding available. The quality may not be that good, or you can set up as high quality encoding, where the Plex will concentrate on high quality transcoding. And just if you have multiple users you're trying to transcode, it may not be able to transcode for all the users, but whoever users are logged in and are using it right now, they will have a very high quality video files as well. And make my CPU heard, again, it will use the maximum usage power. It won't care about the CPU. Basically, it will use its maximum capabilities when transcoding, but it will have a higher quality transcoding and faster transcoding as well. So those are the features that that you can use for transcoding. There's another feature that you have on that's available from QNAP is under multimedia console. What happens is that, let's say if you don't have a NAS, a powerful NAS, but you still want to have if you still want to do like some kind of transcoding, what you can do is you can do an offline transcoding. So what happens is that on offline transcoding, the QNAP will do transcoding in the background beforehand. It will save multiple versions of the same particular file on the QNAP. So when users are trying to, when users are presented, they'll present a multiple resolution of the same exact file. So if let's say if the 4K is now playing back, the user can switch to a 480p or 720p format, and it'll be able to play back that particular file. So here under multimedia console on the QNAP, click on transcoding, and you can go to settings, and you can add your folders that you have your contents, and then select what resolution you want to transcode. You can pre-transcode it as. So what this happens is that the QNAP will then work with that folder, will look at all the video files within that particular folder, and it will transcode it. It will pre-transcode it for you into a playable content. So if you look at the file, so I've already done transcoding for this particular folder. So if you look at the movies folder, there will be a new folder called @transcode, and we'll look at that. It will actually, you will see the pre-transcoded file into 720p. So under Plex, now you will have the same exact file into the original content. Oh, that's movies. My movies are here, and the pre-transcoded file as well. So if you look at the get info, you will see it's under @transcode, and go back to get info, and it's 720p. So that will be 720p. So those are pre-transcoded files already transcoded for you. This is not live transcoding. It does the transcoding on the background. So when you're not even playing back the file, the QNAP will still keep transcoding, and it will convert that particular file. You will have multiple versions of the file. So this will take more space on the QNAP. So remember that. So because there's multiple versions of the file, so the original file is still there. So if you look at the movies folder, the original file is still there right here, and the transcoding file will also be there. So the size will be much smaller because it's pre-transcoded, because it's a smaller version of that file. So that the original file was 4K, right? I think the original file was 4K, but when after done transcoding, it's a 720p file. So it's going to be a smaller file, but it's going to keep that particular file all the time in that particular folder. So that's another great feature you can use. If you don't have a good enough CPU that can transcode while doing live. Again, the other features, that will be the main features that you can actually use. Another tip that I would recommend is now Plex has software is available for multiple operating system as well. So if you have applications, if you have Mac computers, if you have Windows computers that you use it to stream your Plex video files, we recommend to have download the Plex file or Plex application from Plex the Plex.tv, and because when you use application versus streaming it from the web browser, what happens is that the QNAP, the web browser will always try to transcode it. It may not be able to play back 4K content. It may not be able to play back MKV files. So it will always try to go for transcoding the video. But with the software that I have right here, this is the Plex software for Windows, and you have it for Mac as well. And you have applications available for your phones, Roku's. Most of the operating system have Plex software or applications available. So when you use this particular application, the QNAP will be able to, or the Plex will be able to play back original file as well. So if you have an MKV file, it won't transcode that. It will actually try to play back the original format. So because certain applications or the web browser application may not be able to play back MKV files or may not be able to play back original files, we recommend to download the application, install it on the computer, and it will be able to play back that particular file on the original content. You do have DLNA as well. If you set up as DLNA, if you have a old TV that doesn't support Plex and you don't want to get a Roku stick or Google Home stick or like Amazon Fire Sticks, you can actually use the Plex as the DLNA as well. That feature is available on the QNAP as well as on the Plex. So you can enable DLNA and save changes. And on the TV, you can go to DLNA settings, and then you should be able to see your multimedia files as well. So you can do that as well, or you can do a DLNA settings on the QNAP as well. We have DLNA files, a DLNA media server as well that you can enable that, and you can set up your under advanced settings. You can set up which folder you want it to be at. So you can also also do that as well. So that's DLNA settings on the QNAP as well as on the Plex that you can do as well. And yeah, and if you do have Plex Pass, then you will have all the features available from your Plex. But the another feature is getting softwares beforehand. So I think there's a question on the chat where someone was asking that I have to download that particular file. The updates are not available on the QNAP App Center, but the updates available on the Plex. It's because you may have a Plex um, Pass. So when Plex releases an update for Plex server, the Plex Pass will users receive that update much faster than everyone else. Also, when the Plex releases updates for their regular channel, so when Plex releases update, it goes to 3 different channels. The first channel it'll go through is Plex Pass users. So if you have Plex Pass user, you will get the update much faster. Then the second channel is regular user channel as well. So Plex will provide that to regular non-Plex Pass users, and you can get that as well. And eventually, what happens is the Plex will provide us um, with the update file, and then we'll test the file to make sure that it's available. It's tested. If it's tested and everything is working fine, and then we'll release that update inside our App Center, and you will see the update. So yes, our App Center won't get the update much quicker, but it'll be the one that's tested properly, and then we'll be updating it on our App Center. So for Plex Pass users, they do release beta software updates as well. So you can update it, you can download it, update it, and then it works fine. So if it works fine, you can also you can update it on your QNAP. The way you do that is go to Plex, go to My Account, go to Downloads, look for apps and devices. Yeah, apps and devices, and look for QNAP. Oh, I'm sorry, server. I'm so sorry, server. And then look for QNAP, and make sure Plex download option is available, and click on choose package. Again, we do have ARM packages, we do have Intel AMD packages, and then we have multiple versions of ARM packages. So look at models you're using for ARM NAS, and then for Intel AMD we do have 64-bit version. So you can click on that. Once you download that particular file, you can go back to App Center, click on this install manual option, click on browse, show that particular file that you just downloaded, and click on install. That will install the application for you. So you can update the application as well. Now Plex Pass doesn't have the option. I haven't seen the option to go back to older version. Let's say there was some problem and the new update is not working fine for you. You can go back and go to QNAP.com. Don't delete the application on the NAS. Go to QNAP.com, go to support, download center, look for your NAS. I have a 472 XT, and go to App Center. And then look for Plex here. and we'll have the stable channel option available. So that will be a stable application. You can click on it and then download, and then you can upload it on your QNAP, and it should downgrade that for you. Now, so right now the Plex media channel are the stable. Sorry, the Plex Pass version is 1.21.3, and I think our channel is 1.21.1. So it's an older channel that's available on our App Center. But again, if you install a Plex Pass version and you start having some problems, the first thing I would recommend to do is come back here, download the older version, and don't delete the application. Just go ahead and install it manually. The QNAP will downgrade the version for you. So the reason for that is if you download it, it's gonna erase all your configuration, all your library settings, all of those settings. Then you have to reset up everything again. But when you download the older version and install it manually, QNAP will just downgrade the application. Your library should be fine. Everything should be fine again. So that's another great step. If you do have some issues with your Plex, we do recommend come here and click on stop. And then you can, once it's stopped, you can go back and click on start. This restarts the Plex application. If you want to restart, if having some issues accessing your Plex, click on start. This will restart your Plex application, and you can start using your Plex application. Those are the settings you can actually do in case for as a troubleshooting point or troubleshooting step, just to restart the application, downgrade the application, and that'll be it. I think that will be it from our side. I'm gonna hand it back over to Cody, so we can continue.
For the entry-level Plex servers, these are basically for direct play. So so maybe very limited software transcoding, but no hardware transcoding, and it's pretty much mostly for limited storage, direct play Plex streaming. Moving on to kind of some mid-tier Plex servers without Plex Pass. So this is if you're not going to be using hardware transcoding, then you can use one of these. And these have fairly powerful CPUs. In the 73 series, it's an AMD, and the 73AX, it's a AMD Ryzen actually. But because they're not the Intel models, they won't support the hardware transcoding for these. So this is strictly for software transcoding. You probably go up to about 1080p, but no hardware transcoding. And then for mid-tier Plex servers, if you are using Plex Pass, you could choose either the 251D, or for a little bit more power, the 53D series is a really nice home Plex server product using hardware transcoding. These processors overall are not as powerful as the previous models shown, so they won't have as much power for if you were doing software transcoding, but with their Intel chips, they do support hardware transcoding with Plex. And then if you want to go with something a little more robust, higher end, our 72X series, this is a brand new series that's going to be from the 72N series. So these will stream, these are supporting in the 72X series a i3 processor, and for 72XT, the 6-bay is i3, but the 8-bay is actually i5. They also support 10 gigabit connections, as well as M.2 support for caching and higher throughput. And these will give you both really solid software transcoding and hardware transcoding with Plex Pass. We're also going to talk about, we want to give a shout out to our partners over at Seagate as well, because you know, we don't make the drives. So when you buy our products, they're coming there, and you choose what drives you want to put in it. And Seagate is a really solid drive manufacturer, and they make drives that are specifically designed for NAS, and we do a lot of work with them. So when you're looking for drives to put in your QNAP NAS, you're going to want something that is designed to run 24/7. So sometimes if you're looking at like desktop drives, even if they're on the compatibility list, that might not be the best call for a NAS. So Seagate provides a 5-year limited warranty. They also include 3-year data recovery for Ironwolf Pro, covering data corrupt, and Ironwolf including data corruption, user error, viruses, fire, and water damage. And they actually now make drives as large as 18 terabytes per bay. So you can get a ton of storage with these drives. They're super reliable, and they have great warranty, great data recovery system plan. So definitely recommend those. And with that, yeah, thank you very much.